last week, I want to start a new series of talks on freedom, and so today I want to focus on an aspect of freedom that too many of us surrender, and the idea that I'm trying to get to with this series on freedom is, it's one thing to stand up and sing or have a flag and be proud that you were, born in America. And, a while ago, there was this news story that came out. Jeff Bezos said, you shouldn't be proud that you're tall, or you shouldn't be proud that you're good looking, or you shouldn't be proud, and it was a news story. And I thought, why is that a news story? Like, that's common sense. Isn't it? Like, you can walk around all proud that you're tall, but you had nothing to do with it. Right? Plus, short people are cool. The funny thing is, every once in a while I'll meet somebody that I haven't met, or I watched online for a year, and I finally decided to come, and then the first thing they say to me is not like how touched they are by God, but they'll go, you're a lot shorter than I thought you were going to be. So anyway, but he wrote this article, and I guess it's because the guys made billions of dollars that I guess it was newsworthy, but it didn't seem that newsworthy. It just seemed like that's a common sense thing. You shouldn't walk around and feel proud that you have good hair. These things are kind of, to me, self-evident. Like, you can be grateful, you can be humbled by these amazing opportunities, or a gifted IQ. But it's one thing to be proud to live in a free land if it means that you're humbled and grateful. But what happens to too many people is they get blessed with the ability to live in a free country, and they surrender their freedom in all kinds of ridiculous ways. That's why in the scripture we read last week, it's for freedom that Christ set us free. That the true freedom is inward and spiritual. And so I guess here's what I mean, and we'll do a lot of practical things, hopefully, through the series, but you could live in the freest country in the world in that sense, but you could be a prisoner to your own anger. Think about that. You know some of these people. They're so angry that their entire lives are dominated by their anger. Or you could live in a free country, in a prosperous country, and give yourself over to your creditors because you can't handle a credit card. And I'm not trying to cast aspersions on anybody. I'll put my hand up at the beginning. I'm the chief of sinners, all right? So if that makes you feel better. But neither should you duck from any of this and realize, I should not give my freedom away. There's a purpose to your freedom, and as we said, it's to be used to serve others so that your life can be beneficial to people that are around you, to your family. But if you're addicted, to some kind of narcotic or something, again, not casting aspersions, get help, but you probably can't serve your family really well. And so what happens to a lot of people, I heard this guy say this, it was stunning. He said, there's a lot of ways to look at America, and one of the ways to look at it is, the leader of this and leader of that. And the guy goes, do you know it's also the leader, number one percentage incarcerated on planet Earth? So in other words, we're not always using what we've been given very well. What do you think God's evaluation of us is going to be? What you were given, or what you did with what you were given? The evaluation is going to be, what did you do with what I gave you? Not what did I give you? And we have a responsibility to live free so that we can serve others. Today I want to talk about, perhaps the greatest enslaver of all is your mind. How to live free in your mind. People get entrapped and enslaved in their own thoughts. And last week I shared a part of a story about when I went to Russia, the old Soviet Union, after it broke up. And, I was a young man working with a missionary, and they just told me so many stories about what life was like. And I got to see firsthand what it was like to be in a place where you weren't free. And it's hard to describe. A lot of things are really hard to describe because you're so familiar with your life. I always tell people it's good to travel a bit because it gives you a perspective on what you have. And someone said it's like asking a fish if it's wet. They would probably say no. And yet this is what we don't understand. We're so immersed in our culture that we don't have a perspective on it. So when you go somewhere else, then you can look back and see, wow. So this missionary took me. We were traveling to a few places, and this is after the breakup of the Soviet Union. And he said, watch this. We're going to drive, and we're going to leave the city. We're going to get out into the open roads of the countryside between cities. And we were traveling, I think, to Minsk, and get out into the countryside, and the speed limit, like here in America, like you're in the city, you got to go down to like 35, or real residential 25, or some places 40 or whatever, and then you get out on the freeway and it's 75. And there, they would just take it down when you got out in the country. He said, watch this. What they were teaching people is they were teaching that they were controlling their what? If I have to control these people, the best way to control them is to control their what? Mind. And after a while, people got conditioned that, I have to slow down out here. Not free to object or free to talk about maybe there's a different way to do this. And then he said, no, went in this grocery store. I still remember it. There were like, let's say there were 8 doors. I don't remember exactly. And they had, like the vestibule, right? It's cold. You know what I'm talking about? The little buffer zone. There's a set of doors, and then a little area, and then another set of doors. You go like this. So most places, like you would have, here's 2 that go in, and here's 2 that go out, right? Not there. You got to go in this door. It's an outdoor here. There's 3 doors that are locked. You got to go in here and jostle against people. You got to come through this way and now go in this door that is 2-way traffic and jostle. He said, all to just dominate their what? Mind. Here's something you need to know. Every day of your life, you're being lied to. Every day of your life. Every day of your life, you're being lied to on a regular basis. And you just have to be discerning enough to know. And I don't think it's an accident when you read in the Gospels that Jesus goes, before he begins his ministry, like the before test, as he goes into the wilderness, and he is tested there by who? The devil. The liar. And given a series of lies that he has to try to discern and then overcome. I think there's more in that story than for us to cheer for Jesus that he does good. I think that story's in the gospel because that's a story for you and for me, that what happens to us is we get put to the test and you get lied to. Someone says to you, this is going to make you feel better. This is going to make you... All right, I'm doing a message on finances coming up, so I'm not going to go too far off script, but it's probably not a coincidence that one of my credit cards is called the Freedom Card. Talk about some cool marketing, right? We were on a little vacation last week. We were at the Mackinac Island, and we went into the guard shack, up in the top of the fort. You know the fort, right? We had to climb up there. 8 million steps with a 5-year-old on your shoulders. And they have the old guard check where they show the old-fashioned shackles, they put people in, like, it'd be like labeling the freedom shackles. But people buy this stuff. If you really read the statistics about what's happening with people on the freest, most prosperous, piece of real estate on the spinning rock right now in the Milky Way, and are enslaved to all different kinds of things, handing over their freedom. The Apostle Paul said this. He said, there's a war in my mind. Romans 7. There's a war in my mind. The first thing you have to do is you have to realize, you have to notice that you're being lied to. You have to notice. I heard someone say, your thoughts are not always your own. And this is worth thinking about just for a minute, because you think, well, they're my thoughts. Of course, they're my own. But are they your thoughts, or does someone plant the thought there and then you latched onto it? See what I mean? By the way, one of the things that we know is that we latch onto the negative 10 times more than we latch onto the positive. So if you're going to try to, let's say you're trying to make some money in the media world. All right, just back up a little bit. You're a little tight. Anybody here ever try to make money at anything? Okay, 3 honest people so far. All right. It's a thing. It's a thing. It doesn't mean you're evil, right? Because when you go to get bread, they ask for, so that's how you got to make money, right? So you do stuff to make money. So people, if you were going to make money selling news to people, what kind of news would you need to sell if you knew people latched onto negative 10 times more than latched onto positive? There's a lot of negative news. By the way, I heard Paul. Anybody remember Paul Harvey? Good day. All right. I heard him talk about this. And he talked about, because people always say, well, why don't they do something positive? Why don't they do something positive? And, most news stations, they'll have to throw a little happy, like a little puppy, and a kitty fighting each other, a little, that much. We can handle that much feel good. Paul Harvey said that there was a company that tried it. They listened to all the people saying this. I know that's what people want. People say that's what they want. The other day we were driving on the freeway, and we were going this way, and there were cars just jammed. Stopped completely. And I'm like, whoa, what happened? And I could look over here. So we were coming, and what happened is there was nothing in the road, but there was someone who had flipped his truck over in the median. And it went for miles and miles and miles. Why? What was stopping them? Huh? Curiosity. Everybody had to see the wreck. We got to see the wreck. So this is what we know. This is what we know is true. This is what Paul talked about as this battle in his mind. So things happen in your life, and the tendency is, until you retrain this thing, all right, until you retrain it, is the tendency will be to hold on to the negative. But you are free to not do that. That's where you got to start. Genesis. God said, let us make man in our image. God is free to do this, and God is free to do that. The very greatest gift, the greatest gift of freedom that you've ever been given is the gift of free will. And free will starts where? Right here. You're free to do it, or you're free to not do it. You're made in the image of God. Now, Romans 12. So don't conform any longer to the pattern of this world. So the lie that you get told is that this is how you're supposed to live. This is what you're supposed to do. And we're all a little bit, we're social creatures, so we don't want to stick out like a sore thumb all the time. We like to blend in a little and be accepted in the group as a whole. That's kind of normal-ish. But there's a fine line between that and then just letting the world squeeze you into a mold. And now it says, don't be conformed into this pattern, but be renewed or transformed by retraining, Romans says, your mind. You got to retrain this thing. This is going to take some work. Look. Who here has some bad habits? So the other day, we're all getting down for bed. We're getting down, and mom, thank God for mom, teaching Charlie good things in life, because dad is working on it, right? And mom's teaching, honey, no, we don't eat snacks before bed. We eat them, you eat more at dinner. Next time you eat more at dinner. And then we all get in bed. I kind of look, if Charlie's got her eyes closed, and I bring all my snacks. She opens her eyes the other day, and she goes, Daddy, you have snacks in bed? I didn't know what to say exactly. How many got some bad habits along with me? So that's just a way of doing it over and over again. The great habit maker is here in your head, your mind. Just repeats the same patterns over and over and over again. And that's not a small thing to reprogram. It's not small. So let's be honest and fair there. Be fair to yourself for a minute. First of all, don't live in denial that you don't have any bad patterns. That'd be real stupid. Okay? But then give yourself a break, because if you're going to really try to change them, here's what I tell people: space your vices out a bit. No, I mean, that's not nothing. People don't know what I'm talking about. Vice, Pastor, I don't know what you speak of. So, okay. The things that you're doing that maybe aren't so helpful for you and humanity. Right? But honestly, if you can space them out, like, I have not surrendered eating potato chips. Should I? By all scientific metric data, the answer is, but I have not done so. So what's the best hope for Chris? Space the vices out a little bit. But that's not nothing. So no, if you're going to retrain yourself how to do things. The other day we went to this, and Vicky is the best. She's always online looking for healthy recipes. I mean, these are things that I've never even heard of growing up. Never heard of a healthy recipe. I mean, we went from the donut shop to the pizza place to the ice cream shop. That's kind of the rotation, you know what I mean? In my dad's, truck driving world, you get a cheeseburger, and then you go back and you find some pizza, and a balanced diet would have a cheeseburger with your pizza. And if you change anything that you're doing, it's going to take a lot of work. But this thing takes a lot of work to change. So you first have to notice. You have to begin by recognizing it. And the other day, Charlie and I had to get on a flight, and thank God she made a friend. You know what I mean? Everywhere we go, it's just I just say a little prayer. God, please, for a 5-year-old girl somewhere. Because if we find a 5-year-old girl, I'm good. You know what I mean? I can enjoy whatever experience I'm having, if it's a flight or a concert or whatever. Thank God they're right across the aisle, 5 years old. I'm like, as soon as they get to take off, I'm going to. Sure enough, they're making bracelets, they're exchanging beads, they're doing stickers, you know what I mean? And the mom's cooperating over there, the dad gives me the thumbs up. I'm like, would you like her in your aisle? That's what I said, I scooted her over there. And they played and played and played, and then the girl, they had like a video game that they were playing, her and her brother, and so we haven't really gotten into that world yet, and so she's over there and she's snooping onto the video game, and she thinks that's cool, whatever they were doing, and then after a few minutes, they kind of exhausted all that, and then the girl puts on her headphones. Charlie says to me, goes back to the seat, she goes, Dad, I want to wear my headphones. Now, just think about it for a minute. Are your ideas your own ideas? I mean, is Charlie just sitting there out of the blue just thinking, I just want to wear some headphones? I mean, we all know exactly, 100% exactly what happened. This girl seemed kind of cool to Charlie, and she put on some headphones, and Charlie goes, I think I have some headphones, and I could probably, look cool too. What's the reality? We're all a bunch of 5-year-olds. Right? We just got fancier headphones. We mimic other people. We get our ideas from other people. And this is what somebody said. This is what captured me. He says, look, you don't have an idea has you. Now you've crossed the line. See some of the stuff that's going on in our world? It's not because people have an idea. It's because an idea has them. Now you're no longer really in charge. You're a puppet to something much greater. In 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 5, it says, we take every thought captive. Anybody know that verse? We take every thought captive and make it obedient. So these thoughts are going to come to you, and you got to captivate them. You got to catch them, and then you got to make them obey. But thoughts are wild, man. They're hard to wrangle. Anybody ever sit there with your mind just racing all over the place? You got to think about what your thoughts do to you. And the problem is we are sometimes on the polar opposite. Instead of us taking our thoughts captive, our thoughts are taking us captive. When the children of Israel, when they left Egypt, they were enslaved, but the problem was they were physically free, but they were still enslaved here. It took a long 40 years to wash this out. They were getting ready to go into the promised land, and they sent 12 spies. You know the story. Numbers 13. Go see what's in the land. Go see if it's good. Because you need vision. You have to have a vision for your life. That it can be better, that it can be different. I worked with kids in inner city Detroit for a lot of years, and one of the things that I did with some of them, especially, certain ones that I don't know how else to describe it, but I became very close to, and it would be like a Jesus and the disciples kind of thing, where we start spending a lot of time, and I brought them out of the city, out of their neighborhood, not afar, but just out to the suburbs, out to something different they hadn't seen. Some of you don't realize what a big deal this can be for someone that's only lived in a few blocks, only seen certain things. And I took them to my very, very, very middle of the road American house, and I said, they thought I was a billionaire. And I sat them all down, like, you could live in this house. They couldn't conceive that they could live here. That may be hard for some of you to understand depending on how you grew up, but if you spend a lot of time, then you would understand the mind gets programmed. In their minds, it was like, well, if I'm a basketball star, or if I deal drugs, or there's a couple other small options, but really, this is not. And I said, no, all you got to do is you got to get up every day and go to UPS. Wear a brown suit. They're ugly, but besides that, you can get over the suit. Every day, just get up. Looked at me like I was crazy because their mind had been programmed. People are trying to program your mind. And you need to know that. When I say people, it doesn't really matter. In the scripture, it talks about the weapons of our warfare are not like the warfare of this world, but there's principalities and strongholds, and it's a spiritual warfare. But they said, no, we can't go in there and take that land. They're giants. And this is what they said. We saw the Nephilim there, and we seem like grasshoppers, listen to this, in our own eyes. We seem like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and I'm sure we look the same to them. You got to get that. First, what were they saying? This is what I think about myself. I'm not worthy for this. I'm not going to do this. And we look the same. How do you know how you look to somebody else? We look the same. Were they interviewing him? What do you think about us? Are we tall? Are we grasshoppers? They made an assumption. Whoever has made some assumptions about other people looking at you. Liars. Oh, I wonder if they think I'm there. I wonder if I make all these assumptions about what other people think about us. What you should do is believe that God believes the best in you. God has a purpose for you. God has a destiny. God has a hope for you. That's all that really matters. That's the opinion that counts. And then you got to first get in agreement with that, right? Like, God's called me to this. So that's what I'm going to do. And this battle goes on in your head, but like they're giant. I'm just a little grasshopper, and I could never do that. All of this was in their own head. I can't. God can't. That's one thing that most people don't ever say out loud. Think about it. But they say all the time in their head. That's what we're talking about. That's something, because you're Christian, you don't say God can't. God can do anything. We sing, the old saying, Christians don't tell lies, they sing them. You know what I mean? God can do anything. We have all these songs about God's strength and God's power, what God can do. So we never want to vocalize God can't, but in your head, you're always like, oh, God can't do that. God's not going to do that. He's not going to do that for me. Why? Why would you think that? They made a judgment that, well, we're grasshoppers, and that's what they think of us too. God can free you from the destruction. You got to like yourself. You got to believe in yourself. How are you going to love other people if you don't love yourself? The greatest commandments are love God and love your neighbor as yourself. But here's where a lot of people get into trouble. They don't even do the basic thing of loving themselves, and so now you're not really free to love anyone else. You got to cross that threshold first, brothers. I'm not talking about some weird narcissistic kind of way. That's all just a mask for the fact that you really don't love yourself. If you love yourself, you're comfortable with yourself. You're like, this is what God made me, and I'm good with it. And I gotta go around to God, getting around to God's business, what He wants me to do with it. So I'm going to tell you what to do with an idea. First, you got to notice it. This is an idea. You got to notice that it came to you. You don't immediately just absorb it. You just know this is an idea. This is, it would be like, if you're at the pool and someone they were having a water balloon fight yesterday, and the little, and you want to notice it. There's incoming. Are you with me? If you don't notice it, you're going to get hit by it. You got to be aware. It says, be alert. Scripture says, be alert. Be alert. There's ideas coming at you. Wake up in the morning, there's stuff coming at you. I got to notice it. This comes at me, this comes at me, this comes at me. And the thing you need to notice is that most of the stuff's not going to be properly labeled. Lies don't come to you with a big box that says, gigantic lie coming your way. They're labeled very nice things. Freedom, fulfillment, happiness. You deserve it. Are you with me? They're very cozy. Lies are very cozy. You got to know it's incoming. And then I got to evaluate, where did this come from? Is this going to be in any way beneficial to me? Should I absorb it? Should I act on it? And to get yourself to think independently. A guy named Max Fisher, did research on this, and he's like, social media, like they know exactly what they're doing to us. So, all right. Again, not trying to be judgy. I have a cell phone. All right, so I'm not the most social media savvy person in the world. I'll give you that. I'm aware that it's out there, and I have an account or two. Full transparency. But this is what researcher said. It operates like a drug. It operates a drug in that it's addictive. It plays on brain chemistry. The people designing that stuff, you ever seen like a 14-year-old? And it plays on brain chemistry. This is what it does. It's like a slap. It's a negative and a positive reinforcement, and it traps you and tricks you into going places in your mind that now it can steer you, like it would steer a lab rat. It's just not sincere for you to say, these are my own ideas. It's ignorant. What you have to do is at least notice that these are ideas that are being pushed onto me. Now, there's some you might want to accept. Vicki told me the other day, there's great recipes online. Okay, that's probably all right. I guess you got to decide how good your filter is. Is this a really unpopular message, or am I trying to help? If we all just want to be dumb and close our eyes, we can do that too. Or you can know that this stuff's coming at you, and it is affecting you, and it is affecting your kids. And the ones that don't have their brains fully developed, they got a really tough chance. By the way, one of the things that we did in the student ministry, if you dare to allow your teenager in there is a holster. You know what I mean? Just like, they don't allow like firearms at school. You go into the youth ministry, you just take your cell phone, you drop it in for 60 minutes. And then we have like a little detox zone where they freak out for a little bit, and like fan them, we fan them. They've all made it. They've all survived. You can pick it up on the way out. A lot of things that we're doing, a lot of the actions that people are taking, a lot of the words that people are saying, they're just repeating things that someone else has told them in a very subtle, slick way. So here's what I would like to leave us with. The battle's here. Freedom is here. Philippians 4. Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything. What's the number one thing that happens? I will have to say, like, I've read the Bible a lot, but I never heard the word anxiety so much as I have in the last few years. And like when I was a teenager, I never heard the word anxiety. I mean, did it exist in some level? I guess, maybe, but I never heard it. I'm just telling you, maybe I did. I don't remember ever hearing it. And I mean, that's like all you hear about. Don't be anxious about anything. There's nothing to be anxious about. One of the lies that comes to your head is like, your life sucks. No, it does. I mean, it comes in your head. Your life sucks. And it comes in there when you're scrolling. And your life really sucks. Look at that person's life. I'm not that far off. And you got to decide what to do with that. Does my life suck? I feel bad about it. I feel bad about myself. I feel bad about my life. I feel bad about the decisions I made. I feel bad about the hair God gave me. All the wrong thinking. Instead of like, you're made in the image of God. You're fearfully and wonderfully made. I know the hope that I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to give you a hope and a future, and promise. You got to reprogram your mind. Don't be anxious, but by prayer, with thanksgiving, give your request to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your what? Your mind. Finally, brothers, whatever is true, noble, right, pure, lovely, admirable, excellent, praiseworthy, think about those things. Think about those things. Think about those things. Just think about those things. In some ways, it seems very complicated. In some ways, it's so simple. Just think about those things. What's good? What's lovely? What's admirable? What's praiseworthy? Think about it. Dwell on it. Put your mind there. My life doesn't suck. My life is great. I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. I got problems like everybody. I got challenges like everybody else. But I got God on my side. If God is for me, who can be against me? Huh? You got to get a better dialogue going up in here. Some of you have been to church so little, you got like one bullet to fight the war with. You know what I mean? Like, didn't Grandma tell me? Didn't she say? You know, and the devil's just going bang, bang. You got a bazooka banging this side of your head. You get one little thing, and it's, you know. You got to fight back on this front right here, because this is where it's won or lost. It's up here. So I want to leave this with you. Faith. We could really use a lot of faith right now. Because even when you don't have you say, I don't have any reason to believe. I don't have it. You could say everything's again. If that's what you want, I don't think you should, but you can. And then you still got faith. You say, but God. But I have God. Faith transcends everything else. It always gives you a reason to hope. It always gives you a reason to believe. It always gives you confidence. It always, always, always holds you up. Jesus says, don't let your heart be troubled. Trust in God. Trust in me. Trust me. Ready? You say to yourself this: I'm going to be okay. Huh? Close your eyes. Everybody, close your eyes. You just tell yourself this: I'm going to be okay. God's going to make me a way where there doesn't seem to be any way, and I'm going to be okay.